Good morning. Welcome to Just for Today, a time of eclectic reading, sharing of perspectives, meditation, and prayer. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader of the newly joined Centers for Spiritual Living of Greater Baltimore and Columbia. Today is May 17th. This is pre recorded because I have a spiritual breakfast to attend this morning. So, what called to me to read comes from Jesus and the Disinherited by Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. And I opened it up to page 72, which offers us this. Thus, hatred becomes a device by which an individual seeks to protect himself against moral disintegration. He does to other human beings what he would not ordinarily do to them without losing his self respect. This is an aspect of hatred that has almost universal application during a time of war and national crisis. Doubtless, we will recall that during the last war, a very interesting defense of hatred appeared in America. The reasoning ran something like this. American boys have grown up in a culture and a civilization in which they have absorbed certain broad attitudes of respect for human personality and other traits characteristic of gentlemen of refinement and dignity. Therefore, they are not prepared psychologically or emotionally to become human war machines to make themselves conscious instruments of death. Something radical has to happen to their personality and their overall outlook to render them more efficient tools of destruction. The most effective way by which this transformation can be brought about is through the discipline in hatred. For if they hate the enemy, then that hatred will immunize them from the loss of moral self respect as they do to the enemy what is demanded of them in the successful prosecution of the war. Wow. I think that sums up a lot, at least it does for me. Um, it helps me understand the divisiveness that we're experiencing right now and the rhetoric that led up to it has been one of abject hatred from a perspective of fear that our American way of life has been threatened. And so we have been systemically conditioned to hate the very elements, to declare war on the very elements within our own culture that have been advancing inclusion, where inclusion of those people, of those ideas, are perceived as a threat to the culture. And so the more we are conditioned that that hatred is actually valor, the more divided we become, the more confused the conversation becomes, and the more we oppress one another under the guise of self respect, under the guise of protecting what is precious to us. And that shows up as radical, narrow minded nationalism that only has room for what has been. As long as we see something new as a threat to what has been, rather than a growing of what has been into something even more magnificent, we fight against it and we give ourselves permission to hate it in order to justify, in order to subordinate treating one another horribly without losing self respect. It actually flips the paradigm to where we begin to believe that it is more respectful, it is more honorable to hate the threat than to love. Um, that's my take. I would love to hear what yours is. Um, yeah. And so we're not in a place where we can actually interact with this being pre recorded. So I'm just going to go ahead and move us into our time meditation and contemplation. And I'm going to reread that one more time so we can take that into that 5 minutes of consideration. Thus, hatred becomes a device by which an individual seeks to protect himself against moral disintegration. He does to other human beings what he could not ordinarily do to them without losing his self respect. This is an aspect of hatred that has almost universal application during time of war and national crisis. Doubtless we will recall that during the last war, a very interesting defense of hatred appeared in America. The reasoning ran something like this: American boys have grown up in a culture and a civilization in which they have absorbed certain broad attitudes of respect for human personality and other traits characteristic of gentlemen of refinement and dignity. Therefore, they are not prepared psychologically or emotionally to become human war machines, to make themselves conscious instruments of death. Something radical has to happen in their personality and their overall outlook to render them more effective tools of destruction. The most effective way by which this transformation can be brought about is through discipline in hatred. For if they hate the enemy, then the hatred will immunize them from the loss of moral self respect, as they do to the enemy what is demanded of them in the successful prosecution of the war. So I bring my attention, my awareness, to my breath, to this chair I'm sitting in, to the room I'm sitting in, to the awareness that life is sitting in life. That the same consciousness is revealing itself as this room, as everything in this room, including me. That I am an emanation, an animation of one life, one love, one peace, one power, one presence, fully expressing itself as this thing I call my life. That the nature of this source is omniscience, is omnipresence, is omnipotence, is pure love. And in pure love, there is no hatred. One divided against itself in hatred would cease to be. And I recognize this so that I am aware of the deception, of the delusion, of the lie of hatred. I claim and affirm the truth of my being as love. I deny the viability of hate within me as a power, but rather as a learned response to support and further a delusion of fear, the lie of loss, in the spiritual realm of eternal beingness. Nothing can ever be lost. In the truth of an ever-changing infinite possibility, everything is new every moment. And so I claim and affirm that all of humanity is awakening to the truth of their innate beingness, awakening to the truth of the source that is expressing as them, that each is the substance of truth, of beauty, of peace. That creation is always moving itself forward to higher and greater expressions of itself. And I use the terms higher and greater to simply recognize the positive nature of evolution, that evolution is always forward. I claim and affirm that within human awareness, there is an awareness that refuses to devolve backwards. That there is a awakening of the courage and the strength within every human organism to stand up for love, to stand up as love, to stand up for peace as peace, to be seen, to live from the perspective, from the truth, from the ultimate spiritual reality that there is nothing to lose, only more love to express, only more God to express, only more peace to express. That there is no place of separation where any activity in the human realm does not involve all. That there is the courage, the peace, the power within every expression of divinity as human to stand in the gap with absolute assurance and speak truth to power. To live in the reality that there is one body and to commit one cell at a time to the whole, complete, and perfect operation of that one body, to every cell working together, every community as an organ within the organism, operating in concert, in synchronicity, in the harmonious operation of one, to love, support, and move the whole body into an expression of perfect health, into the expression of a world that simply works, works in alignment with itself. And I recognize, I celebrate, I give thanks that the word spoken is the word fulfilled. That the word spoken is the infinite speaking itself into being as me, through me, using this body that it created to ignite divine ideas of itself, spoken into the activity of law, the doer of creation, acted upon immediately and made so. This is the faith of things not seen but hoped for. So I release. Knowing it's already done, I let go of all of the human chatter that tells me how impossible it is. I let go of all of the human static that would have me believe I need to control anything. I let go of all doubt, all fear, all dissension. I let go. And I claim and affirm as I release that life knows exactly what it's doing. And I surrender the human me to do life's bidding, to live life authentically, out loud, unqualified, undefended, unashamed. Ashe. Shalom. Aho. Amen. Amen. And so it is. Namaste.